Hare Krishna, my name is Madhavananda Das. This is our second session in our virtual uh, Jagannath Puri Parikrama. And we have some exciting places we want to go with you today. Because actually, Parikrama is not something, as Srila Prabhupada once said, you don't see Vrindavan with your eyes, but you see it with your ears. And although we're not able to go there physically, at least we can go with our hearts and consider it something. So I'd like to ask Ananta Sage Prabhu if we can go to our little slide presentation. And I'll go ahead and say a few prayers before we begin. Gora Graganya Gana Go to Goloru Haram Goranga Gudatama Gopyada Kolpa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachiya Dile Kakola Kahe Pemananda Emona Goranga Hridoya Dariya Bola Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Laha Gorangera Namare Jai Jana Goranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Prana Re Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yeshaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema Bhidana Parama Pumarta Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Nilachala Nivasaya Nityaya Paramatmane Balabhadra Subhadrabhyam Jagannataya Te Namaha Kadaha Chit Kalindita Tavipina Sangita Kadavo Mudabiri Nari Vadana Kamalasvada Madhupa Rama Shambhu Brahma Madhapati Ganesha Chitapado Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Vanchakalpadarubhischa Kripa Sindhubhya cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're speaking something more today about Sri Jagannath Puri Dham, this place which is described in the Skanda Purana, that it's a very, very confidential, intimate place, a very hidden place. Rahasya Stanam, is it? What does he say? Rahasyam etat paramam Vishnu stanam anutamam. That this is a very excellent place, but it's a very, very mysterious place. And we raised some questions in our last session, which we're continuing with the questions. Why is it that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to this place? And what is the nature of this place? So we see in this first slide here, we see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu running the Jagannath Puri. And this is a very mysterious thing. After he took sannyas, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately asked his sannyas guru, Keshava Bharati, please give me permission to go to Jagannath Puri. Why didn't he say, give me permission to go to Vrindavan? And why is it that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that Mahaprabhu's three desires, his desires as Krishna, Shri Radhaya, Pranaya Mahima Kidusovanayaiva, Swadyo Yena Bhuta Madhurima Kidusova Madhya, Sokyam Chashamana Nabhava de Kiddusam Viti Lobat. He had these three desires. He wanted to understand, what is the nature of Radharani's love? What is it that she sees in me? And what kind of pleasure does she get from that love? And those three desires, ironically, paradoxically, were not fulfilled in Navadvip. They were not fulfilled in Vrindavan, but they were fulfilled according to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Jagannath Puri. So please come with us today. We'd like to explore a little bit of this very, very mysterious place. We can go to the next slide now. We describe this place as a Jagannath Puri University of Braj Prem. And each different tirthastali or place is a classroom with a particular lesson in bhajan teaching us how to go to Vrindavan. And on the left, we see an old painting. This was done before there was photography. This is done in the 1700s. And on the right is a photo taken in the 1800s. And you see the Aruna Stamba in front, which we spoke about before. This is not the Garuda Stamba, the Aruna Stamba, the older brother of Garuda. And this Stamba was originally found in Konark. And it wasn't there at the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this Jagannath Mandir is the first of our classrooms. And we can go to the next slide also. Here's a rare photo when they actually allowed photography inside the Jagannath Mandir, at least inside the campus a little bit, not inside the temple of the deities. This is a photo that was taken in the 1800s. And we can go to the next picture also. Here's an aerial picture of the Jagannath Mandir today. So we can go to the next picture. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered into the Jagannath Mandir, he saw Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, and here's a painting from the 1700s depicting the artist's conception of what the inside of the temple is like. It's a little fantastic, but interesting. And Mahaprabhu immediately ran to embrace Jagannath Baladev Subhadra. We can go to the next picture. Here's another old picture from Kalyana, Kalyana Kopachuru. And another fantastic photo of Lord Jagannath. And we go to the next picture. When Mahaprabhu went there, he wanted to embrace Lord Jagannath, and he fell to the ground in ecstasy. And at that time, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who happened to be visiting the temple, he came there and he saw that the guards were going to beat Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is a standard procedure for someone who lays on the ground in front of the deities, at least in the Jagannath Mandir. And Sarvabhauma stopped him. He said, no, I see on his body all the symptoms of a Mahapurush. Don't trouble him. Now, it's interesting, one of the lessons that we get from the Jagannath Mandir, and we're going to revisit the Jagannath Mandir again in some of our other sessions, I think. There's so much, we just to try to speak about the Jagannath Mandir, we could speak about it for years. There's so many unlimited details and stories and things within the Jagannath Mandir. But within the picture frame that we're using for our discussion, where we're saying it's the Jagannath Puri University of Braj Prem, and each different tirthastali is a classroom with a particular lesson. The Jagannath Mandir contains several lessons. We're just going to touch on one of them. And that lesson is, what is the meaning of darshan? We can go to the next slide. From after that first visit to the Jagannath Mandir, whenever Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go to see Jagannath, go to have darshan, he would not go close, but rather he would stand at some distance. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explained that he was doing that to teach us the meaning of darshan. That darshan doesn't mean that we see the Lord, but it means that the Lord sees us. It's not that darshan means that someone sends us a photograph on the computer and that's our darshan of the day. It may be darshan, but darshan means we act in such a way that the Lord will see us. if someone offers obeisances to that photograph on the computer, someone offers prayers, if they offer some incense, then certainly the Lord may see that devotee, because the Lord can also appear within a picture. But if we're looking at the picture for our own sense enjoyment, or if we go to the temple in the morning and we stand in front of the deities and we look at them and we say, yeah, it's okay. I approve. The pujaris did a good job today. That's not darshan. You wouldn't even go to your work, a job like that. You don't go to the job and stand in front of the boss and just look at him, say, yeah, boss, I approve. Rather, you report. And that's why so many times, for those of you who've been in India, you'll notice that when Hindus go before the deity, oftentimes they tug their ears, they slap their cheeks, because they're standing in front of the Lord with the understanding the Lord will see them. And so they're indicating that you should chastise me. I'm a badmash. I'm a rascal. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta commented that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stood by the Garuda Stamba to teach us the meaning of darshan. The first time he entered into the temple, he ran to embrace Lord Jagannath, but after that, he stayed at a distance. But where did he stay? He stayed next to Garuda to teach us that it's the Lord who's the seer. And if we stand as devotee, Dainya Bab and his mood of humility, definitely Jagannath, he'll look at Garuda, and then I'll be there, and he may see me also. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was standing by this Garuda Stamba, he melted 3 of his fingerprints into that column, and he melted his footprints into the ground. Just a few days ago, we met the pujari inside the Jagannath Mandir. He's been serving there for over 16 years, and he has his deity that he's serving. There's many deities in the Jagannath Mandir. The deities that he serves are not deities that you can dress, and this is the deities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's footprints. Some years later, they moved them to a separate shrine. And this pujari, for 16 years, he's been serving there in that place. So darshan means that we should act in a way that the Lord will see us. And this is one of the most important lessons in the Jagannath Mandir. This is one of the early lessons in this classroom of the Jagannath Puri University of Braj Prem. And we can go to the next slide. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he had the guards bring Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his home. His home today is still there. It's on the bank of Sweta Ganga. And we'll be saying something about his home and something about Sweta Ganga in our Katha today, and perhaps something about a great devotee who came and stayed in Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house in the 1600s. So that house, just incidentally, for those of you interested in history, according to historians in Jagannath Puri, if you know the deity of Shamakali, which is maybe 1 kilometer away from the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, to the southwest. And that was the original site of Maharaj Prataparudra's palace. There's some deities. There's a deity there of Shamakali, and there's also deities there of Sri Sri Radha Rasik Raj. And we're also going to hear about some other deities of Radha Rasik Raj today. And there's some other deities called the Ashtashambhu. I don't think we'll be speaking about those deities in these sessions. They're not the most significant deities. But the interesting historical point is that according to historians, at that time, the time of Maharaj Prataparudra, his palace area extended from that temple of Shamakali, that area, all the way to the Gambhira. And it included the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Today, if you go to see the Palace of the King, it's on Grand Road. He has a restaurant called the Grand, which is right in the building right next to it. And Maharaj Dibya Singh Dev, the current king of Puri, he doesn't stay there very much. He stays in his home in Bhubaneswar. But when he comes to Rath Yatra or some ritualistic ceremonies or something that he has to do, then he stays in the palace at that time. But that's the new palace. The old palace was much, much greater size. So when Sarvabhauma brought Mahaprabhu to his home, he lay there unconscious. And after some time, Nityananda Prabhu and Chandrasekhar Acharya Prabhu and the other devotees, they arrived in the Jagannath Mandir, and they were confused when they didn't find Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so they were asking, was there some very effulgent jati sannyasi? Did some sannyasi come here? Yes, yes. The guards are going to beat him. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya took him to his home. Well, how do we find that? And so they gave some directions. And they went there and they found Mahaprabhu. And we see in this picture Nityananda Prabhu with a blue turban on his head doing some bhajan, kirtan in front of the Lord and the other devotees. And on the right of the picture here, on the lower side with a little bit long hair, is a picture of Gopinath Acharya, who's the cousin, as I recall, of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And there was a long discussion between the devotees and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And Sarvabhauma, he was a great scholar. According to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he was an impersonalist follower of Shankaracharya. And he was so learned, he was the main minister for Maharaj Prataparudra. But when the devotees told him that actually Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sarvabhauma couldn't accept that. He said, no, 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 how can you say that? I know Shastra. And according to Srimad Bhagavatam, he quoted Bhagavatam from the 7th canto, the Lord is Triyuga. He only appears in 3 yugas. So how can you say that he's Bhagavan? And the devotees became a little pained in their heart hearing this, and there was some discussion. And they told Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that you may be a great scholar, but you can't understand the Lord just by dint of your scholarship. It's described that Bhakti Bhagavatam Grayam na buddhiya na chatikaya. In Chaitanya Charitamrita it says that you can't understand Srimad Bhagavatam na buddhiya na chatikaya by dint of your knowledge or even by help of the commentaries. We see there's so many people, even with Srila Prabhupada's books, you can give one of Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatams to a drunk on the street. How much? You can give the same book to a young boy studying Hindu philosophy in the university. How much will he understand? Well, his mind's probably on the girls and maybe on some drugs or something. He'll understand something more than the drunk, perhaps, but how much will he understand? You can give the same book to the professor who's teaching the course, and he may understand something more. But if you give the same book to a new devotee, a new bhakta, who hasn't had any training in Indian philosophy in the university, but he's been following 4 regulated principles, and he's chanting Hare Krishna, he'll understand so much more of that Srimad Bhagavatam, because he's gotten the mercy of the Lord. And then what to speak if you give that book to someone like Radha Govinda Maharaj, who his entire life, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, Radha Govinda Maharaj, from his entire life from the age of 5, he's been reading Srimad Bhagavatam and different commentaries on it and serving his spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. So they told Sarvabhauma that because you're just a dry philosopher, you can't understand. So this is one of the lessons in this particular classroom in the University of Jagannath Puri, University of Braj Prem. And that is that you can't understand the Lord just by your scholarship or just by reading books. It's not enough. You have to have a personal relationship with the devotee. You have to approach the Lord in a proper way. We can go to the next slide. This is a picture of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a very proud fellow. And although he was a grihasta, he was teaching different sannyasis. And he asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who he took sannyas from, what was his sannyas name. And he said, I took from Keshava Bharati. He said, oh, the Bharati Sampradaya. And he said, that's a lower Sampradaya. I can raise you to a higher Sampradaya, if you like, to a higher level. And Mahaprabhu responded in a very, very humble way. Yes, certainly. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya spoke to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for 7 days. That original seat that Sarvabhauma sat on is still there today in the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And Mahaprabhu sat there very patiently and listened, and he didn't say a word for 7 days. Until finally, after 7 days, Sarvabhauma said, well, do you get it? Do you understand what I'm saying? which is indicative also when we have some kata, there should be some reflections. There should be some feedback. The 11th canto of the Bhagavatam says, Parasparanu katanam pavanam bhagavadyasa. The word paraspara means back and forth. There should be some discussion. Otherwise, you don't know, did the person understand it or not? And for the first time in 7 days, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke. And he told Sarvabhauma, he said, I understand Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra is very clear, like the sun. But your commentary, your explanation is very difficult to understand. He said, it's just like the clouds covering the sun. And Sarvabhauma became a little annoyed. He said, what is this? You understand the sutras, but you don't understand the commentary? Of course, it's usually just the opposite. And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke to him in a very humble way. So this is also another lesson for us in the Jagannath Puri University of Braj Prem, that when we meet someone who is very proud of their scholarship, who wants to chastise or try to teach us, we learn from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu how to behave with them in a very, very humble way. We see in a similar way with Ramachandra Puri, who was a disciple of Madhavananda Puri, the Param Guru of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ramachandra Puri was very fond of criticizing the devotees. And he would say very harsh things to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. And Mahaprabhu would accept it. And he would say, oh, it's my good fortune that you're blessing me, that you're teaching me. It said that if you want to give someone instruction, don't give instruction to a fool. He'll just become angry. Rather, you should give instruction to a wise person because he'll appreciate it. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appreciated the comments of Sarvabhauma, but he didn't correct him, even though Sarvabhauma, what he was saying was wrong. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tolerated to teach us also that what it means to be a devotee, that not that we should demand respect for ourselves, but we should behave in a very, very humble way. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was listening to him, and he didn't say anything until finally Sarvabhauma asked him, so what do you think? And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke, and he spoke like a bullet. And he explained the Atmaram verse in 9 different ways, in so many different ways, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was completely astonished. You can go to the next slide. And he thought to himself, he said that nobody can speak like this. Only the Supreme Personality of Godhead can speak like this. So at that time, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he surrendered to the Lord. And then at that time, we can go to the next slide, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested his Sadbhuj form, his 6-armed form before Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And if you go to the next slide, we can see a picture of that deity there in that room. There on the bottom, you see there's a little bit of a raised area. You can see that the 6-armed form of the deity of Mahaprabhu Sadbhuj. And then there's kind of a doorway to the right. Just underneath that, there's some books. Underneath that, there's a table. And underneath that, it's kind of a little hard to see in the picture. There's a kind of a raised dais. That raised seat is where Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya sat when he was speaking to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was the incarnation of Brihaspati, a very, very learned personality. It's described by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Nomitam Gurachandram ya kutarka karka sasayam sarvabhaumam sarvabhuma bhakti bhumanam acharai. He offers his pranams under Ganga Mahaprabhu. He says, Namitam Gurachandram ya, I offer my pranams to Gauranga, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because kutarka karka sasayam, that person whose heart was the abode, the sasayam means the abode, was the abode of kutarka, of bad arguments. The hard-hearted Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He changed him, Bhakti Bhumanam Acharai. He changed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya into a great devotee. So it's not how much Shastra that we know. is described by Prabodhananda Saraswati in Chaitanya Chandamrita. Acharya dharmam paricharya vishnum vicharya tirtani vicharya vedan vinana gora priyapada sevam vedadi dusprapa padam vedanti. Someone may be following Acharya Dharma. They may be following Varnashram Dharma, all the different rules of Varnashram Dharma. Paricharya Vishnu. They may be worshipping Lord Vishnu. Vicharja Tirthani, they may be going to different tirthas. Vicharja Vedan, they may be studying the Vedas. But Vinana Gora Priya Padasivam, if they don't serve the lotus feet of the dear devotees of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, Vedadi Dusprapa Padam Vedanti, then they can't understand the abode of Vrindavan. They can't understand what is proper Siddhanta. So the disciples of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Sishya Kahi Ishvara Tattva Sadi Anumani, Acharya Kahi Anumani Nahi Ishvara Gyani. They said that we've understood, we derive knowledge of Ishvara Tattva by Anuman, by studying by some logical hypothesis. And Gopinath Acharya, he rejected that. They had this argument that you can't understand the Lord in that way. But atapite deva padambuja dvaya prasadale sanagrihita eva hi janati tatvam bhagavan mahim nanachanyo ekam piv chiram vichinvan. Only if someone gets a little of the mercy of the Lord can they understand him. So finally, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he got some mercy from the Lord, and he could understand something about the position of the Lord. And he had a bit of an attitude adjustment. And as we saw in the previous picture, he began offering prayers to Gauranga Mahaprabhu, 2 pictures previously. He began offering prayers to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he surrendered to Mahaprabhu. So it's only by that surrender, only by taking shelter of the Lord in his form as guru, that we can approach the Lord. And there's an interesting conversation between Lord Nityananda and Jiva Goswami, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur shares with us, about Vedanta Sutra. And how is it that the Govinda Bhashya commentary would be manifest? And Nityananda Prabhu, he told Jiva Goswami, I'll go ahead and sing this verse. He said, Kahe jabe bhashya hoibe prayojan, Shri Govinda bhashya tabe habe prakatan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. He said that actually there's no need for a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. He said, Pritak Bhashya Ebi Nahi Prayojan. There's no need, because Bhagavata Koi Sutta Bhashiti Ganana. That Srimad Bhagavatam, it explains all the different verses of Vedanta Sutra. But he says, Kabe Jabe Bhashya Rahoibi Prayojan. Later on, when there's a need of Prayojan, then Shri Govinda Bhashya Tabi Habi Prakatana. This Govinda Bhashya, this will manifest. So a question comes, how is it that Baladeva Vidyabhushan, he was able to compose this Govinda Bhashya? And Nityananda Prabhu says a very interesting thing to Jiva Goswami. Sarvabhauma saparke se gopinath sunila prabhura bhashya sarvabhauma sat. That Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Gopinath Acharya, they heard Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Sarvabhauma spoke it, and then he saw Mahaprabhu was being quiet, and Sarvabhauma said, well, do you understand? And he said, yes, I understand the verses, but I don't understand what in the world you're trying to say. And then he spoke on the request of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Mahaprabhu spoke Vedanta Sutra to Sarvabhauma. And so Gopinath Acharya and Sarvabhauma heard that. And Nityananda Prabhu tells Jiva Goswami, Kalateno Prabhura Ichaya Janmaloy Baladeva Beshi Jabe Jayapura Jaya. Later on, by the desire of Mahaprabhu, he said that Kali Teno Prabhu Icha means a desire. Janmaloi Baladeva Beshi, that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya will take birth. Excuse me, Gopinath Acharya will take birth as Baladi Vidyabhushan. And Jaipur Jaya, he'll conquer over Jaipur with his philosophical commentary. Tata Shri Govinda Bodhi Bhashya Pakasiya, Sebi Be Sri Gauranga Pada Jive Nishariya. There in Jaipur, he'll serve Gauranga Mahaprabhu by writing this Govinda Bhashya. And by doing that, Jive Nishariya, he'll deliver all living entities from material bondage. So this is connected. This Govinda Bhashya is connected with the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya because Gopinath Acharya was there hearing this. So this is the second place that Gauranga Mahaprabhu came to in Jagannath Puri. And we can go 2 slides down and see that deity again in Mahaprabhu's 6-armed form. And Mahaprabhu was staying there. And he was going to the Jagannath Mandir every day from there. But Mahaprabhu already was becoming very, very popular. And when he would go to the Jagannath Mandir, which according to Lochandas Thakur in his Chaitanya Mangal, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was doing 3 times a day, it would be packed with people, everybody wanting to come and see him. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya showed him a secret in his house. And that secret's still there today. We can go to the next slide and see that. This is a tunnel. This is an entrance to a tunnel in the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Many years ago, a friend of mine from Switzerland and I, we decided that we wanted to go inside this tunnel. And so we approached the Mahant at Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house. His name is Balaram Das, and asked him for permission to go inside that tunnel. And he said, oh, that's very, very dangerous. He said, there's cobras in there, poisonous snakes and things. But we were very eager to go into that tunnel and to take some of the dust because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going through there every day. So we went inside. You see the entrance to it. We went inside that tunnel. If you go back to the previous slide again, you can see the doorway on the right. Just through that doorway on the ground is this picture. We can go back to the tunnel. And that tunnel is said to go all the way to the Jagannath Mandir. Mahaprabhu was going there. So we went inside of that tunnel, and we were a little nervous, to tell you the truth. But we were relieved to find the most dangerous thing inside of that place were the mosquitoes. And there were quite a few of them. But there was no scorpions and no snakes or anything like Balaram promised us. And we were disappointed to find, though, that the room was only about maybe 3 meters long by 2 meters wide. And it's more of a room, and it was filled with sand. That someone some years before had filled the tunnel up with sand to keep people from going inside of it, apparently because it was too dangerous. Anyway, we were kind of hoping maybe we could sneak inside the Jagannath Mandir through that tunnel, but it didn't exactly work that way. So I'd like now to shift gears a little bit, and we'll go to our next slide. Now we're going to go in the 1600s. And we're going to go to present-day Bangladesh, and you're going to see how this connects with the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya as we continue. This is a story of a daughter of King Naresh Narayan of a place known as Putia, and her name was Sachi Devi. She was a daughter of Naresh Narayan. And here's a photograph of the original Rajbari, or the palace in Patia, that she appeared there that she was born in. This is older than 1601, so it must have been built sometime in the mid to late 1500s. If we go to the next slide, you can see another picture from the palace of King Naresh Narayan. And if we go to the next slide, you can see one of the many temples, very old temples, over 500 years old, that King Naresh Narayan built. I don't know the name of the deities in this temple. It's Radha Krishna deities. But the next slide is the deities. If we go to the next slide, these are the deities of Radha Govinda in Patia. Very, very old temples. These are over 500 years old. So Sachi Devi was growing up as a princess. And life is pretty good when you're a princess. You've got 3 people just to paint your fingernails and toenails and someone to do your makeup and your hair and whatever, and people to cook for you. And she didn't even know what it meant to walk on the ground. People would just carry her everywhere in a palanquin. But Sachi Devi was a great devotee. And she grew up going to see the deities of Radha Govinda in the temple there. And she learned very quickly Shastra. She was a very wonderful devotee. And when she got a little older, like really old, and that time means about 12 years old, and she wasn't married yet, her parents were getting worried. So they were getting ready to arrange for her marriage. And Sachi Devi told her parents that, look, I don't want to marry. I just want to be a devotee of Krishna. These husbands are all screwed up and they make your life completely miserable. I just want to serve Krishna. And King Naresh Narayan and his wife said, no, 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 no. You don't understand. You're just a little girl. You need a husband. Every girl needs a husband. And Sachi Devi said, okay, fine. If you want to give me a husband, I'll accept. But you have to find a husband for me who won't get old and who won't die. And if you can find such a husband for me, then I'll agree to marry him. Now, that was a rather difficult requirement, and they weren't able to do that. And so finally, Naresh Narayan and his wife, they became old and they passed away. And then Sachi Devi became the queen. Many of us would think, oh, good day, right? We sometimes devotees they're just looking forward. When can I become a GBC, or at least a temple president, or at least a temple commander? Sachi Devi became the queen of Patya. But she thought to herself, this is terrible. I just want to serve Radha Govinda. I just want to serve Krishna. And now I have all these politics and everybody's coming to me and complaining about this person and that person. And it's a disturbance for my bhajan. But she was locked up, so to speak, in that service. She couldn't escape. So she was very fond of hearing Valmiki Ramayana. And one day she heard the Leela in Ramayana, where Valmiki describes how Lord Ramachandra disguised himself and went out amongst the common people to hear what they were saying about his rule. And Sachi Devi snapped her fingers. She said, yes, this is it. This is my answer. So she called for a minister. She said, I'm going to do the same thing that Ram did. And I'm going to go out and listen to the people and see what they think of my rule and if everything's okay. And while I'm gone, it'll just be a day or two. I want you guys to take care of things and manage things. I said, yes, Rani. And so she left. And as soon as she left, immediately Sachi Devi started running for Vrindavan. And she never looked back. And she went all the way to Vrindavan from present-day Bangladesh. It must have taken her a month or two. She arrived in Vrindavan. In great ecstasy, she took bath in the Jamuna, and she was staying there for a few days. And after some time, she heard about a devotee whose name is slipping my mind. Haridas Goswami. She heard about a devotee named Haridas Goswami, who's a great devotee. And Sachi Devi went to him and said, Maharaj, please give me initiation. And he looked at her and said, you're a princess. You can't do any austerity. You're used to having everybody serve you and having a comfortable life of enjoyment. Go away. And so she was disappointed. And she was sleeping on the bank of the Jamuna. And for those of you who are very conservative, you may be shocked to hear that Sachi Devi wasn't sleeping alone. There was no men, but she was sleeping with different insects. And they were climbing inside of her hair and things. And Sachi Devi, who always was combing her hair and had people to take care of her in so many different ways, now she had no comb. It's kind of an existential question, I think, for some ladies. Can there be life without shampoo? Can there be life without a hairbrush? Well, the proof of the fact of this that it is possible because Sachi Devi did that. And following the old system, which is still used by sadhus in India today, she used mud to wash her body. And after some time, her hair became caked into dreadlocks. And when Haridas Goswami saw that, he was very impressed. And he called for her. He said, hey, Sachi Devi, I want you to do something for me. Yes, Maharaj, what is it? And he said, I want you to go door to door and beg alms and bring me whatever you get. And she was in ecstasy. Finally, I have some service. Maharaj is accepting me. And she went door to door. But people knew who she was. And when she would go to their door, they would say, what are you doing? Huh? I'm a poor person. You're a princess. Why are you bothering me? Go away. Go get a job. Get out of here. And they would chastise her and abuse her. But Sachi Devi, for her, those words of chastisement were very sweet and nectarian. And she just accepted it because she's doing service for Haridas Goswami. And eventually Haridas Goswami accepted her and gave her initiation and sent her to Radhakund to stay with another lady disciple. And there she was chanting 3 lakhs a day. And finally one day, Haridas Goswami called for Sachi Devi and he told her, I want you to go to Jagannath Puri, to the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And you stay there in his house, which is all dilapidated, and I want you to worship his deity, his Damodar Shila. And that house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is on the bank of Sweta Ganga, which we can see in our next slide, if you go to that. And Sachi Devi went there and she cleaned things up and she began to do worship of that Damodar Shila. And some time went by. She was giving classes regularly. And she was going out and doing madhukari every day because her guru never told her anything different. She was just going and begging alms. And finally, the time came for Ganga Sagara Mela. And Sachi Devi was a great devotee, but she had this little desire for herself. Her desire was she wanted to go and have bath in the Ganga. But it's so far to go to the Ganga from Jagannath Puri. So she took rest, and that night she had a dream. And Ganga Devi came to her and told her that I'm residing in Sweta Ganga right in front of you. There's many stories about Sweta Ganga. I'm not going to go into that so elaborately today. One thing is mentioned, though, according to the local tradition in Jagannath Puri, there was one great sadhu who was staying on the bank of Sweta Ganga about 2,000 years ago and doing his bhajan. His name was Jesus Christ. That's a tradition in Jagannath Puri. I don't know. It's long before my time. So she was staying there, and Ganga Devi appeared to her and told her, you come take bath in my water at midnight. And so Sachi Devi got up and she went and took bath there in Sweta Ganga. And an amazing thing happened when she took that bath. We can go to the next slide. You can see the Jagannath Mandir in the background. Suddenly, the water started rising up, and you can see that water, it's probably about 30 feet from ground level, under the ground, Sweta Ganga. And you can see maybe a little better from the previous picture about that. We could go back to it again. Anyway, the water rose up. You can see some of the steps here in Sweta Ganga. The water rose up and rose up. And some people say that it began to carry Sachi Devi. Other people say that she was carried by an underwater tunnel. And it's possible, as we showed you that tunnel from the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Other people, as I mentioned, say that the water started carrying her and that Sachi Devi became the first Hare Krishna surfer. And she was riding on a wave. And the water took her. We can go to the next slide. You can see Sweta Ganga nicely. And go to the slide after that. There's another shot of Sweta Ganga. This temple in the center here is a temple of Lord Shiva, which is underwater most of the year. And we can go to the next slide after that. And the water carried her to the Jagannath Mandir. And somehow, mysteriously, the doors opened, and the water carried Sachi Devi inside of the temple and put her down. And then the doors closed. And in any case, whether she came by an underwater tunnel or she came by the surf, when the Pandits came the next morning to wake up Lord Jagannath, when they opened the doors, they found this strange lady inside. And they became very disturbed. And they said, hey, it's a chore, it's a thief. And they arrested Sachi Devi, and they put Sachi Devi in prison. And so Sachi Devi was there in prison, and she was thinking, this is not so bad. I can chant Hare Krishna here. Life's not so terrible here. And at that time, that night, the king of Puri, Raj Mukunda Dev, he had a dream, and Lord Jagannath appeared to him. And at that time, Raj Mukunda Dev was very happy. He thought, this is very wonderful. Look, there's Lord Jagannath. But then he saw that Lord Jagannath looked extremely angry. He looked like Lord Nrsingadev or something. And he started shouting at him. And he told him that you've committed a terrible offense. You people have arrested my great devotee, Sachi Devi. and to put her in prison. And right now, I want you to go and offer your obeisances to her and release her, or I'm going to kill you and I'm going to kill all of your descendants. And Maharaj Mukunda Dev, he said, yes, yes, I'm going. And he said, and not just you, I want the head priest from the temple to also go. Yes, 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 my Lord, we're going. And then Lord Jagannath told him one other thing. I want both of you to take initiation from her. But that's quite a big thing. The king of Puri and the head priest of the Jagannath Mandir to take initiation from a lady. But they didn't hesitate. And they went in the dark of the night to that dank, dark prison. And they arrived there, and there was Sachi Devi. And the king, suddenly she saw the king of Puri and the head priest, and they're falling on the ground, offering obeisances to her and begging forgiveness from her. And Sachi Devi said, what's going on? What is this? And they said, oh, Lord Jagannath told us that you should be released. And Sachi Devi said, really? Oh, that's wonderful. It's so nice. Thank you. And then the king told her, and one other thing also, Lord Jagannath said that you should give initiation to myself and to the head priest here. And Sachi Devi said, I can't do that. I don't want to be guru. And then the king of Puri, Raj Mukunda Dev, told her, look, lady, Lord Jagannath said he's going to destroy me and my family if you don't give me initiation. Please give me initiation. So in this way, she initiated the king of Puri. We can go to the next slide. There are many stories about Sachi Devi. After that, she became known as Ganga Mata Goswamini. And you can see in this picture, this is a contemporary picture from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house. There's several sets of deities here. In the background, the deities of Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, large deities. And in the front, you see the deities of Shri Shri Radha Rasik Raj. And there's a wonderful story about those deities. I'm going to tell this story briefly, and then we'll finish today. There was one Brahmin who was living in Jaipur. His name was Chanda Sharma. And that Chanda Sharma, he was worshiping these deities of Radha and Krishna. And one day Krishna came to him in a dream and said, I want to go to Jagannath Puri. I want to be worshipped by Ganga Mata Goswamini. And Chanda Sharma thought, what is that? The dream doesn't make any sense. And then again, Krishna came in the dream and said, look, Baba, I'm telling you, I want to go to Puri. You take me there. So Chanda Sharma walked all the way from Jaipur in Rajasthan to Jagannath Puri, which again must have taken several months. And he arrived and he asked, where is the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya? I'm supposed to meet this Ganga Mata. Oh, she's over there. And he came to her. It was a little late in the day, just before night. And he said, Mataji, please, these deities, Krishna wants to be worshipped by you. And Sachi Devi, Ganga Mata Goswamini, she said, I can't worship any deities. She said, my Gurudev told me to beg. She was still begging, although she had the king of Puri as her disciple. Sachi Devi never stopped begging because it was the order of her guru. I can't take care of a deity. How can I take care of Radha? I said, I'm very, very sorry. There's no question. I can't do it. And he tried to convince her in so many ways, telling her, look, Krishna said, no, I'm sorry. It's out of the question. And so the Chanda Sharma didn't know what to do. So he left Sachi Devi, and then he had some inspiration. He hid the deities in the bushes in some Tulsi grove there, and he went away. And that night, Sachi Devi took bath and she took rest. And in the middle of the night in her dream, Krishna came to her. And Krishna said, I'm that Brahman, I told him to bring him here to you. I want to be worshipped by you. And he left me in the Tulsi bushes, and I'm hungry and I need a bath. Will you please give me a bath and give me something to eat? And Sachi Devi woke up and she went to the Tulsi bushes and she found the deities of Radha Rasik Raj. And she began crying in ecstasy. And she bathed the deities and she dressed them. Those deities are still there today in the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. This is a fairly contemporary photo here. We can go to the last picture. And if you come to Jagannath Puri with us sometime, maybe we can take you to the samadhis of Ganga Mata and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. They're a little hard to find. They're about a kilometer or so away from the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. and they're hidden behind someone else's house. But it's a very interesting place. You can see in this last picture, the last slide, there's a small samadhi on the left, uh, which is just above my head in the, in the picture there. You can see the little peak of it. And to the right is a bigger samadhi. The bigger samadhi is a samadhi of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and that small one is a samadhi of Ganga Mata Goswamini. So I want to stop there. There's so many lessons we have from all of this. And that is one big lesson, is that it doesn't matter what gender someone is. It doesn't matter how learned someone is. But the Lord, he appreciates the devotion of the devotee. Bhakti mama bijanati yavan yaschasmi tatvataha. He's conquered by devotion. He's not conquered just because someone's a king or someone's a head priest or someone's a minister to the king or someone's extremely learned. But Krishna is conquered by devotion. So these are some of our exploration of this Jagannath Puri Dham. And if you come next week, we'll have another session and go to some other places in Puri. Now, I'd just like to ask if anybody has any questions or comments. There's one question here popped up. As we know, Krishna is not only in the temple in the form of the deity, but in our hearts also. Can we experience that kind of darshan from our own heart or from the heart of our guru or sadhu? Well, it's described that by our acharyas, such as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Rupa Goswami and other acharyas, that Krishna was actually born directly from the womb of Yashoda. That was his Janma Leela, whereas his Avirbhav, or his appearance, was from the prison of Kamsa. And it's described in the Bhagavatam that Vasudeva, from his mind, he transferred from his mind to the mind of Devaki, Vasudeva Krishna, who's a form of Lord Narayan. But in Gopal Champu of Jiva Goswami, it says that from the heart of Nanda Maharaj, Krishna was transferred from his heart to the heart of Yashoda, who then appeared in the womb of Yashoda. So by the mercy of Gurudev, Krishna will appear in our heart. Guru makes Krishna appear in our heart, as my Guru Maharaj used to say. And that's our original temple, just like we also read in the Bhagavatam about the Yajna Patnis, the wives of the Vedic Brahmins. And when they went to see Krishna, they were looking at Krishna, and then at one point they closed their eyes and they could see Krishna in their hearts. And then Krishna disappeared in front of them. They could just see him in their hearts. So Krishna may first appear in our heart, and we want to make that our heart a temple. That's Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that's the best temple that we want to make. Other temples, they can be a little controversial, a little argumentative, sometimes a little problematic, but this temple is the best temple. So we'll continue in our next session, reading and hearing something about this wonderful, amazing place known as Jagannath Puri Dham, and hearing about the Jagannath Puri University of Braj Prem. So I want to thank you very much, and all the devotees of the GBC SPT for putting this on. And Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktabinda ki jai, Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol, Vancha Kalpadarubhischa, Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Nandakori Vaishnavabinda ki jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai.